Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking. Get your questions in as well. Don't forget, we have Tony Hills joining us in about 15 minutes, actually, and he's going to be taking your questions. So get your questions in for Tony as well. And guys, obviously, Texas is on a bye week, but it's a good chance to get a look at the opponents. They're all going to be on TV this weekend, and pretty much.
Texas fans have all day to watch the last four opponents of the regular season. Ole Miss at Arkansas, right out of the gate. Arkansas has been a mixed bag. They've been up and down team. I had some good moments, had some bad moments. For instance, against a bad LSU defense, they got blown out 34-10, couldn't run the ball, had 3 turnovers at home. So kind of a mixed bag. You don't know what you're going to get from Arkansas, but you get to watch them against Ole Miss. But if Arkansas rises up and beats Ole Miss is done. They're out of the playoff hunt. They got to win out to have a shot at it. Then Florida at Georgia at 2:30, so you can watch how badly Florida gets beat up physically and what will be a physical game before they get to Austin. See if they can keep DJ Lagway healthy through the Georgia game, which they better be careful with him. Then you got A&M at South Carolina, Kentucky at Tennessee. So a great chance to watch all 4 remaining opponents in the regular season on Saturday.
Kind of right in a row too, by the way.
Yep.
11 o'clock, 2:15 or 2:30, then 6 o'clock as well. I'll tell you what, Jerry, that Florida-Georgia game, a lot of people making sounds like Florida thinks they've got a chance. Napier, I know they're 20-point dogs, but Napier apparently circled this game for Florida because he knows how important it is. Don't be surprised if Florida doesn't put up a fight a little bit out of the ordinary. We'll see exactly what that means for them if they spend all their time on that one. Hopefully they didn't spend enough time on the Longhorns a weekend.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Look, these are they'll be competitive games probably early on unless something really bad happens. But I don't agree with Billy Napier on this one because Georgia's up for this too. This is a rivalry game, and Kirby loves. He'll punch in the extra one in this game if he can. He always does. No different from Spurrier used to do it when he was at Florida against Georgia, running triple reverse up 40 points in the last 20 seconds of a game. I mean, Kirby will punch it on Napier if he's got a chance. So I think the key for Florida is what they have: Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, and LSU in November before they get to FSU. The schedule's not as tough because FSU's a disaster as it looked before the season, but they got to keep DJ Lagway healthy because Graham Mertz is already done for the year. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle DJ Lagway versus Georgia, because I don't care how big and somewhat athletic you are, those hits are really impactful with those big athletes Georgia has.
So y'all super excited to watch Maine at Oklahoma or what?
Well, Blake, I have that circled. It's very similar to the Florida State game for me right now, actually. So they're pretty close.
Oh boy. That's gonna be like watching paint dry, even if you're a Sooner fan. Their offense is brutally bad, guys. Brutally bad. Like, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah. And
it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It literally doesn't matter. They'll erupt for 24 points on Saturday.
Yes.
That's my guess.
They're gonna win some one-on-one battles up front finally.
Yeah.
On the offensive line.
Hey, Jerry, I gotta go into recruiting because, frankly, that's what I'm excited about this morning, guys. Jerry, you're out and about in the state of Florida. You went and visited not only Dia Bell on Monday, you visited Myron Charles, the big defensive line commitment out of Port Charlotte, Florida, yesterday. Today, you're going to see the Longhorns' newest recruiting offer for people that don't know about this. A young man out of the Tampa area. Give us what you got and where you've been stuff, because recruiting is now heating up a little bit. It's kind of fun that you're on the road because you get to go out there and see them almost immediately. It's really kind of cool.
Yeah. So I happen to be on the West Coast. Sometimes things you don't just happen to be there. We'll see. But I was at Port Charlotte, Florida, because I was on the East Coast late last week to see Javian Hilson. Then Monday I went to see Dia Bell. That interview's up on Texas Football over at American Heritage. Yesterday I drove across the state to Port Charlotte to see Myron Charles, the defensive line commitment for Texas. There you see Myron's helmet. So that's when other college coaches come to watch him play, that's what they see on this helmet. So, look, I think he's really Myron. First of all, if I had to draw up a defensive lineman, this is pretty much how I draw it up. He is 6'4" and change. He's about 305 right now. And this is a warm-up. This is warm-up stuff on the sled. So this isn't like full speed stuff on the sled necessarily. But if you look at the guy there, he's 80+, I think 81 wingspan, 10.5-inch hands, skinny ankles, athletic kid. Practices really hard. I mean, really hard. So I think he is a big-time guy. I after seeing him in person on a practice field, I'd seen him in person before, but on a practice field, I mean, my years doing this, he's a top 75 level kid in the country. So wherever people have him ranked, it's underranked, underrated, whatever you want to call it. But big-time prospect, no doubt about it. He had his best game of the season against Naples last week, which is kind of a veer team. So you have to be really technique sound there on the defensive front. Has a really good relationship with Kenny Baker. The head coach over at Port Charlotte just raves about him as a kid. And he's really starting to open up, getting more comfortable in interviews. Last spring, he was tougher to interview. Yesterday, we'll have it up. We'll have 5 minutes with him, 4.5 minutes of him at the end of our recruiting breakdown show later today. But much more open now on camera. I think having a decision behind him is big. But look, he turned down the Miami invite last weekend. Miami's going to try until December 4th. Florida State, they're trying. LSU, Bo Davis, Texas A&M, Mike Elko, they're all trying to get him. One of his good friends somebody asked about is Javian Hilson. Look, this is what I'll say about Javian Hilson, his recruitment. There's not going to be any emotional decisions based off games, and that could be a Texas-Georgia experience, an A&M LSU experience. This kid's a mature. Those of you that saw the interview last week, he's mature. He is. This decision is going to be about development and where he visualizes himself developing and maximizing his ability as a football player. He is a total locked-in football player. And look, NIL is going to be really good wherever he goes. That's not going to be a deciding factor between A&M and Texas, because that's where Hilson's coming down to. It seems like he's going to visit Syracuse this weekend, but I think everybody would be shocked in Cocoa if that happened. But it comes down to this. Does he envision himself maximizing his ability at Texas, a la Barron Sorrell, seeing what Texas is doing with Colin Simmons? Or does he see himself as Nick Scourton at A&M? I really think that's what it's going to come down to for Javian Hilson. Texas has been a favorite for him since he decommitted, but then he went and visited A&M last week. This will come. It's not going to be an emotional decision. He is past that point in his recruitment. He made one of those earlier. He would tell you that this is going to come down to straight football. He is a film junkie, a football junkie. Wherever he feels like is going to be the best place for him to maximize his ability is where he's going to go. And we'll see what that is for Javian Hilson. But it's not NIL decision, and it's not an emotional decision. Kid's very mature in his football thinking. It's a football decision. So wherever he feels like it's going to be best for him is where he's going to go. We mentioned the new offer, Kellen Wiley. I'll be over at Seffner Armwood. Seffner's a little east on I-4 from Tampa. This is his junior tape. Texas offered yesterday, 6'3.5", 220-pound linebacker. This is his junior tape at Hillsborough High, a storied high school in Tampa. Had some great players come out of there, including Arian Knight in the Olympic 200-meter sprint, who I went and saw in high school when he was playing football, dynamic wideout. They've had a lot of pros come out of Hillsborough. He's now at Seffner Armwood High, one of the powers in the Tampa area. I'm going to be over there for 3 p.m. practice today. Texas offered Kellen Wiley yesterday. He's scheduled an official visit to Texas November 9th for the Florida game. Miami's considered the favorite. He has been a big senior riser. I think he's moved around from school to school. It got him behind a little bit, but as a senior, when colleges have gone out to see him, he has been extremely impressive. Texas, Alabama, Miami, Georgia Tech, Louisville. I mean, he's had a number of offers his senior season, and he's going to end up being one of the top linebackers in the country the way it's looking right now. So I'm going to be at Sefner Armwood today at 3. I have a thread on Texas football. We'll be talking about my visit there to see Kellen Wiley. So that offer was made yesterday, and he will be visiting for the Florida game November 9th. And I can't wait to watch him. And Sefner Armwood also has some younger prospects Texas likes as well. So we'll be over there on Texas football. We'll be live at Sefner Armwood about 3 p.m. Eastern time today.
Dude, he can run, Jerry. How big is he supposed to be?
He's 6'3.5", about 220. And he is he triple jumped about 43.7. So he's good. He's a high level athlete. He's moved around. So I think that's affected his recruitment a little bit, but I think he is doing a really good job at Armwood. He's good academically. And so he's a really talented player, and I'm excited to see him in person today.
How do you just find? How does this guy just slip through the cracks? Anyway.
Yeah. So Spencer Hogan asked what he triple jumped 43.7 as a junior. So 6'3", 215. Buck Travis asked, "Do I have a preferred hotel?" Yes, Marriott Bonvoy, elite member.
And then living rent free in UT asked, Jerry, who seems to be the most realistic defensive lineman to fill out the class? Seems like Texas is slipping with a win.
Yeah, well, if they can't get both parents on campus in November, that's not happening because, the father did not make the official visit in June. And that was, I think, led to FSU beating everybody out there. Georgia's obviously, look, Georgia, we talked about this. Kirby Smart is going to fight Texas. And we predicted this way back on the show. Kirby Smart's going to fight to keep D linemen away from Texas in his own home state. Just in that, they can't take them all, but they're going to fight on this one. USC is in it for Kevin Wynn as well. The key will be, can Texas get him and both parents on campus in November? If not, no chance with him. But that's where I come out on that recruitment. Joseph Mbaktu, Texas is right there with Mbaktu, along with USC. We'll see if Georgia actually makes a late push there. Again, when they got Elijah Griffin in, they're still after Justice Terry. They're after Kevin Wynn. You can't take all these guys. So we'll have to see there. But Auburn and USC they're the other factors for Mbaktu along with Texas. And I think Texas is recruiting him very heavily. So we'll have to see where those 4 guys come from on this D-line class. But one thing I can say, Myron Charles, solid to Texas. He's gotten to be really good friends with Josiah Sharma. Those guys are solid to Texas right now. And so they got to add two more guys to it. And then they got to go to the portal and add a couple of guys as well.
Hey, Jerry, what about Walter Mathis? Anything late on him, the young man out of Savannah?
Nothing new there. Just got to see if he gets in November.
Okay.
All right, guys, we're going to take some more questions here shortly, and Tony Hill is about to join us. Looks like he's getting ready to join us. But first, Bobby, can you let everyone know about Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm?
Yeah, absolutely. Adam's a longtime sponsor of ours, and we appreciate him very much. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, and think you might be due compensation, and you want a free, no strings attached consultation, they'll let you know what they think about your case. Visit LowyLawFirm.com. That's LowyLawFirm.com. Reach out to Adam and his group. We appreciate you, Adam, for your support of On Texas Football.
Okay, guys, and I believe Tony's ready, so I'm going to bring him in. Tony, how are we doing this morning?
It's Big Lake Blake. You got that water this morning, brother. You just flowing smoothly, man. You got the show going awesomely, awesome, wonderfully well, and excellently excellent. Jerry, you look like you've been using some great manscaping products, brother. I appreciate you, man, always being clean. Bobby, you the smoothest coffee drinker I know, man. What's going on, Longhorn Nation? We are in the building with another victory, right? We're on the right side of the world.
You're on the right side.
Hey, Tony, I thought about you this weekend, actually, and how you'd be preaching from the mountaintop a little bit about the Longhorn win. A win is a win. You're also a former offensive lineman, and of everything that people are worried about, let's start with that. What are you worried about with this offensive lineman and offensive pass protection as a whole right now, buddy?
Yeah, one of the things is that I look at the 5, And so when I say I look at the five, I'm looking at the five guys that are up front, and I'm saying, okay, what are their responsibilities, right? And their responsibilities are to make sure that they take care of the 4 down linemen and the identifying backer, right? And so when I'm watching the game, I'm looking at it from a standpoint of who's responsible for who, predicated off what I believe the protection is, right? And so I'm gonna get a little technical here, right? So if we have a 4 down and a mic protection, that means that the line is responsible for those 4 down linemen in the mic. If you have a situation where like Vanderbilt threw some nickel look in there and they would have 3 down and 4 backers, essentially 3 backers and a DB, then we're responsible for the 3 down and then 2 of the backers. And so when I'm watching the game, they're picking everything up. What I would like to see is that they pick it up stronger and not have so much leakage on the edge. Like I saw our left guard a little bit at times, he would have some issues getting beat inside, which would put pressure on Quinn and having him, there's nowhere for him to step up, which is having some of these errant throws that we're seeing. So when I look at how they're playing as a whole, we're getting pushed, we're pushing the pocket, we're able to run the ball. I think the most important thing that's plagued the line is the thing that's plagued the offense, and that's just consistency. You know, we don't have consistency right now, right? In the first half of that game, we start out with a penalty on special teams, right? Like as soon as we get out the gate, so we're already backed up. That hurts you. And then a few plays later, we have a freakish tip pass that turns into an interception. And it just seems like these things have happened all season long. But you come into the end of the first, going into the second quarter, and we're flowing. So you see what the offense can actually do. And so what I'm looking for is I'm just looking for more of the consistency in the technique. I think that's where we got to get better at as an offensive line, getting back to the fundamentals. And this bye week is going to be great for that. Bye weeks are a space for you to be able to see, okay, we've made it through the season. We're sitting 7-1. We're in the top 6 teams in the country. Where do we get better? We get better in our technique. We get better in our attention to detail. Everybody needs to play better on the offensive side of the ball. Period and point blank, right? Receivers got to run the routes. Running backs got to pick up the blocks. Quinn has to quit throwing the ball to the other team, period and point blank, and having sack fumbles. Like, you got to protect the field, man, because you're giving opportunities to this team, and that's the reason we're in so many of these close games.
I take what you said and match it up with what Bob Shipley, Brian Irwin, Brian Robeson, and Rod Babers all said. And it's hilarious. You're almost like you're echoing the same thing. Get back to fundamentals, get back to technique on the off week, and get back to what you learned and know, and then try to be consistent from there. I think that's very interesting and probably something a typical fan isn't really thinking about, oh, we got to fix this, we got to do this. No, get back to what you know and figure that out and work on that first and foremost. I think that's something for everyone to talk about. Tony, what did you? The other thing I asked I asked Rod and Brian the same thing. Look, they've been in big games before and lost them, like Texas did to Georgia, and then had to go on the road the very next week. What did you think of the Longhorns' performance mentally, not just physically, in Nashville?
Oh, I love that. Championship caliber. Listen, I know what we want to see as Texas fans. We want to see double-digit wins every single week. But guys, the reality of the situation is this. Let's keep things in perspective. This is the same team that beat Alabama. This is a top 25 team in the national in the NCAA, right? So it's not like we're going out there and we're having these type of performances against scrubs. At the end of the day, a win is a win. If I told you that Texas won the next 4 or 5 games by 3 points or fewer, and it was on the road to a national championship, and if they got into that national championship and won it by a last walk-off field goal, everybody's taking that. At the end of the day, we have to remember what we're playing for. We're playing to have an opportunity to play for a championship. And as long as you keep winning, you're going to get that opportunity. Now, what we need to do and I'll answer your question in just a second, Bobby. I'm going to fire this plane a little bit. What we need to do from a mental standpoint is we need to lock in all 4 quarters. And I don't see that. I see that we're locked in heightened moments, right? When we understand, okay, hey, man, they just turned the ball over. We got to get something done. And the defense comes and answers, and then the offense comes and then they score and they drive. but you got to be able to have that consistently. Coming off of a loss is very hard, especially when you know you didn't play your best game. And we've seen that layover hurt teams before. So you have to give kudos and to the team and also to Sark and the coaching staff to say, hey, listen, we're going to lick our wounds. We're going to get back to work, and we're going to go put a product on the field that comes back with the victory. I give them all the credit to that, because it can, and in times past, let's not forget where we've come from too. I think that a lot of times what happens is as we have these victories and we see all the hype that we're getting in the way that we're performing, we forget that we've been in the shadows of obscurity in college football for a long time, right? This is if we put things in perspective, this is our first run at the SEC. This is our first run at different teams. This is our first run at the intensity of this conference, and we're sitting at 7-1. Right. So the mentality is there with these guys. These guys go out and they play hard and they play physical, violent football. You love that. I think that once we clean it up more on the offensive side, then we'll start seeing that consistent product that we were used to seeing the first 6 weeks of the game prior to Georgia, where we start dominating teams on the scoreboard. And look, let's keep it in perspective. We had 2 field goals in the red zone. Those need to turn into touchdowns. That's 14 points. Even with that, we have a pick 6 that's called back for roughing the passer penalty. That puts us up like 34 to 17. We're not even having this conversation, right? So it's just those little moments that we have to stop doing that cost us points on the board. We're taking points off the board. We got to stop doing that.
Hey, Tony, we got a lot of questions here from the chat for you. You're talking about consistency. Horn 7 wants to know, how do you create that consistency, or is it a mental thing?
It's a mental thing. That's an individual effort, right? You can hone in on that as a coach, but that's up to that particular player to understand what's at stake and to say, every time I go out here on this field, I'm locking in. And here's the thing. It's not like these guys are going out there and saying, oh, you know what, I'm just not going to pay attention today. That's not what it is. What it is just you having a man in the mirror moment and saying, all right, when I get out here, I know my keys, I know my cues, and I'm going to execute, right? Being locked in for 60 minutes on everything that's happening, the heightened awareness, right? I'll give you an example. If it comes in your study, right? So it's not, before we put the product on the field, we got to put the product in the classroom. And so in your study, like if coach is giving you understanding, hey, when we get to the 50-yard line, these guys are a 30% blitz team. Then listen, if I'm in the game and it's the second quarter, I'm looking at situational awareness. The things that I used to look at is, all right, it's 2nd and 3. I'm getting the call. All right, we got pass protection. I'm making sure I'm checking the line and giving everybody the game. Hey, we're on the other side of the 50. We're on the other side of the 50. Why are we saying that? Because we remember they're a blitz team. So now the center is like getting the execution done, identifying, telling us who the hot guy is, all of those particular things. And so now with the snap of the ball, we're able to hit that thing in the mouth, and Colt goes out there or Vince goes out there and execute. It's those small, minute details that separate championship teams. So those are the type of things that I talk about when I say being locked in, the very minimal things. A guy that I like very much, and I've never played for him, never even met the guy, but I've played with guys that have played with him, and they talk about his attention to detail being maniacal, right? That's insanical, right? is Nick Saban, right? And how he's just meticulous for details, and those players play that way. So I know Saban is implementing that, but it's onus on the players to say, hey, we're locked in. Every single play for 60 minutes, we locked in because we know what's at stake and we know what we want to be.
Then our next one, Tony, comes from Zane Petty. And he says, Tony, what's your evaluation of why we've given up 11 sacks in 2 games? It seems like we're giving up a lot of free runs on blitzes.
Yeah, I don't know if we're giving up free runs on blitzes as much as I don't know if and I would have to go back and look, but I don't know if in Sark's offense, if we have side adjustments, right? I think we have situations to where we call a play and we have expectations on things that are going to happen. And sometimes when those things break down, now Quinn is out there kind of improvising a little bit. I'll give you an example. I think it was like in the Vanderbilt game, it was the second quarter. There's about 8 minutes and 47 seconds left. They sent a slot blitz off the corner. Now we're matched up 3 for 3. We have a curl route on the left side. You have an out route, and you got a swing route, and then you got a backside curl route with Golden. Golden is open, right? The ball needs to go. There's a linebacker in between the breaking out route and the backside square end. Golden is open. Quinn just doesn't throw it, and so because he doesn't throw it, he takes the sack. So I'm looking at those particular things and saying that's a part of execution. Listen, sacks are not just on offensive linemen. Pass protection is on the offense as a whole. Receivers have to know their adjustments. Quarterbacks got to understand who the guy is that's coming. The offensive line are responsible for their forward down in that particular linebacker, or if it's an empty set, now they're responsible for gaps. It's not just on the offensive lineman. Listen, it's 5 guys. If they send 6, that's not our fault, right? We got to get the ball out. And so I think that how we get that shored up is by everybody going in as an offensive unit and holding themselves responsible and saying, hey, my eyes got to be better. Hey, as a receiver, I got to call these blitzes out if that's what's in their offense, right? As the quarterback, I have to be able to see the adjustments. Let me read the safeties. The safeties are going to tell you everything that's going on in the game. If they're rolling to the strong side, more than likely, here's where the blitz is coming from. If they're rolling to the strong side and they blitz weak, that's film study. You have to be able to understand this is a potential thing that can happen. I need to be checking that. And as soon as I see him squaring in a little bit, like no DB looks at a receiver and just plays him straight up really stiff. That's not how they play. The reason he's playing him this way is because he's about to take off on the snap of the ball. I have to know that. And so I have to be able to either adjust my back to take the swing route, get it out and get 15 yards, or I need to be able to understand that I got a hot route and I got to execute that and make the decision to throw the football. I can't hold the ball on blitzes. You just can't. So it's a multitude of things. It's not just one section. It's everybody.
Hey, Tony, I wanted to ask you, the holding calls in the SEC versus Big 12. What have you noticed there? Is it the level of athlete in the SEC? So you're playing against a bigger, faster human being. What are you kind of seeing there as the difference from your vantage point as doing this at the highest level?
Are they
I think that this is just listen, Bobby. And we've had this conversation before. Jerry, great question. Look, man, there's holding on every play. We have to identify what we're going to call hold on. If I'm Banks and I have the end bull rushing me, if I snatch him down and my arms are out while I'm laying on top of him, that is not a holding call. That's a snatch down. This guy had too much pressure leaning forward. He was already in a position of falling. I helped him. Period and point blank. That has been going on since the beginning of time. So I saw at one point, it was a holding call that they had. I think it was on Cam Williams. And the dude had his hand on the flag before the play was even getting ready to start. Like I literally went back and screamed that and looked at it. And I'm like, yo, this is ridiculous, man. Like you can call holding on both sides every play. If my block, if the block that I have is a block to where it's sustainable and a man is trying to escape and he's reaching and you can clearly see me grabbing jersey, throw that all day long. That is a holding call. If my hands are inside and I got this guy locked, you cannot call holding on that. The hands are inside of the framework. So that's one of those things, guys, that I just think that we're going to deal with. And it just seems when I'm watching us versus other teams, we get that call a lot. And so for us, I just think that's just one more thing that we're going to have to play through, period and point blank, because there's nothing we can do about that. And I'm not going to tell my guys not to go out there and battle. That's the one thing. If I'm Coach Flood, I'm going to tell them, don't worry about the holding calls. Keep playing hard because you don't want to take that aggressiveness from you.
Tony, can I follow up on this with you? if you're running more wide zone, outside zone, are you more susceptible to holding calls because you're on the move working around guys, or versus more of the inside zone or downhill run game? Are you more susceptible to holding calls?
Not necessarily, because from that standpoint, it's just about the execution, right? Now, I can see where you would think that, because when you're thinking, and to be honest, Jerry, we had this conversation off camera when we were at the state fair. What I would like to see, I would like to see more counters and more downhill runs, more power with pull or power out. We ran a lot of counter and we did really well on that. But in the zone scheme, it's a pass off scheme. So a lot of times when a tackle is working a defensive lineman to the upside linebacker, all he's doing is getting shoulder square and having one hand on. As he continues to press to the backer, he's extending arm to be able to pass that lineman off to the guard and the guard get a head around. If he's executing that, then you're not going to have those holding calls. Like, to be honest, I don't know what the SEC refs are looking for when it comes to holding, because there's been calls that I've looked at, like even the Gunnar Helm. I mean, golly, it got to be, I don't know if they're getting extra money to call holding on this dude, but like a lot of these plays that they call holding on him, man, it's ridiculous. So, Jerry, it's just one of those things we're going to have to fight through, man. We can't allow, what we can't do is we can't allow that to be an excuse. We got to execute.
Right. No doubt.
We got one other question here from the chat, and it's from Skibreck, and he says, Tony, do offensive linemen grow out of pre-snap penalties with experience, or does dumb stay dumb?
Well, I don't know about calling these guys dumb, man. These guys are some extremely smart guys. So I'm not going to answer that aspect of it. But listen, do you grow out of pre-snap penalties? That again is just an execution of detail. And here's another thing that I've thought about. I wonder, because of the genius of Sark, is there a lot of thinking going on prior to the game because of so many motions and things of that nature, right? And so does maybe that need to dial back a little bit to allow these guys to play a little bit more freely and a little bit more in flow? I don't know, right?
So, Tony, are you
what
saying,
I do know?
Hey, Tony, are you saying? I'm sorry, I just want to ask you this real quick as a part of that. Are you saying that standing on the line of scrimmage, kind of in a ready position while everybody else behind is doing the motion, is a little bit more difficult on an offensive lineman than maybe just getting up there and going? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Most offensive linemen want to get the play, get their hand in the ground, and come off the football.
Okay.
That's been since the beginning of time. Now, these guys have been in this offense for years, and they've run this offense for years, so they understand it. But what I know to be true is that if you put a DJ Campbell and a Cam Williams in a situation to where they get the play call and we're powering this lineman, double teaming him back to this backer on first sound, that guy's getting moved. As opposed to we get there, we get set up, and now we got to wait for the motions and the shifts. And here's the thing that happens too. We're not the only people on this side of the ball we're not the only people that's motioning and shifting. The defensive line are moving and shifting as well, right? And so when you have a situation to where a guy is standing stable and then all of a sudden there's a motion and he shifts, guys, if a 3 technique goes to a 2-eye or a 2, meaning that he's on the outside of the guard and he goes either head up or inside of the guard, that changes the steps of what we're doing completely for our offensive line. I go from having to take a power step to now having to possibly take a zone step. And now if he's head up on a guard as a tackle, I don't know if this guy is going inside, which is going to tell me that I have to make an adjustment on the run to get to the backer, or if I step, this guy's coming towards me and I'm supposed to get my outside shoulder on his inside shoulder. That's a totally different movement on the snap of a ball, right? Which is why these guys are going to get paid lots of money to do it. I get that. But I'm just saying these are the nuances of the game that a lot of people don't understand. They just look at it and say, why did he do that? Why? Like, come on, you got to be better than that. I agree, but there's other things a part of that needs to be understood. And so what I'm saying is if there's a situation to where if Sark looks at his play call sheet and there's downhill runs with a little less motion, let's call that and just see what the what the results look like. I'm not saying go away from it. It is what we do. But can we mix some of that in to see the type of results that we're wanting to get, especially in the run game?
Good stuff. Tony Skibreck wanted to follow that up because he said, Tony, keeping it classy. You're a pro. No disrespect meant to the O-line. Smartest guys on the field, no doubt. I will say the offensive line in the history of time has always had the highest GPA unless you had a particularly smart quarterback. So that's the reality of life. Absolutely. Tony, thank you so much, buddy. We appreciate you, bud. And thanks for bringing it to us every Wednesday morning.
7-1, 6 in the country. Everything's in front of Texas. Tony Hill said it.
Yep.
That's
thanks,
it,
Tony.
man. We're right where we need to be.
All right, look up, dude. Take care of yourself. Have a good one, man. Good stuff from Tony, as always. Just a delight to listen to. He brings the energy, man. If you're not ready for Wednesday to get over the top, Tony Hills will help you get there. That's for sure. Hey, guys, we need to tell you a little bit about our sponsor, one of our sponsors, Tile. If you're going to be traveling this year and want to make sure you keep all of your phone, wallet, and stuff within sight, you can always use Tile. That is a big reason why you don't ever have to lose your phone, your wallet. You can use Life 360 as part of it. It's an app that helps you track it. It really helps you and your family reduce stress during the holidays. It's a perfect holiday gift. Basically, all you have to do is add the app to your phone, put the tag, a Tile tag in your wallet or on your phone or on your keys. If you happen to lose your keys a bunch as well, it really, really does help you out. Family proof your family with Life 360's Tile trackers. Visit tile.com today and use code ONTEXAS to get 15% off. That's tile.com, code ONTEXAS, ONTEXAS. Again, peace of mind all season long. They also have anti-theft. Unlike the competitors, Tile won't alert thieves to its presence via notifications. It's family friendly, and you can add your Tile trackers to Life 360 and see your family and all of your family's stuff, whether it's the wallet, the keys, etc., all in one spot. They come in these little packets like this. All you have to do is take them off and attach to whatever you want to. Again, tile.com, use code ONTEXAS.
Okay, and we got some questions to get to. Plenty of time, so
Let's do it.
Questions in. But let's start here at the top. Super chat from Juan Garza. He says, did you hear the rumors of Sark to USC if they fire Lincoln Riley? And what are your thoughts?
Man, it's that time of year where if you're winning, your agent's looking for another raise.
Yep. And you'll get one if you're winning.
If the right job opens and your name's mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, how many raises did Nick Saban get, people? I mean, look, so Texas was happy to give Sark a raise. Let's be clear. But in retrospect, what do you think Florida State thinks about Mike Norvell being mentioned at Alabama right now? I mean, are they 1-6 or 1-7, Jerry? I think they're 1-7.
They're 1-7 and headed for 2-10.
Oh my God! I mean, think about and you just gave him a big fat contract. So buyer beware a little bit. I don't think Sark has any interest in USC, by the way.
When Nick Saban retired, every Sexton client that had a really good season was mentioned for Bama and got a raise, while Kalen DeBoer is going to be the hire all along.
Yeah.
Our next one here comes from Devon, and we appreciate your super chat. And he says, what can we do schematically different in a possible rematch with Georgia?
Pass protect better would be number one for me. I don't think there was an issue on defense that was stark. Perhaps play the run a little bit better earlier, and keep getting after the quarterback, because Carson Beck. The one thing I will say about that Florida-Georgia matchup, Jerry, if Florida can get after Carson Beck, he might turn the ball over. Like, I don't think Georgia's a perfect team right now.
No.
That's why
there is one. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. That's why they lost to Alabama. They turned the ball over. I think in a rematch, Texas has to establish a run sooner. They did that a little bit in the second half, and that slowed the Georgia rush down at times. There are several things I think on offense that Sark in a redo would change up. No doubt.
Well, the key with this Georgia team is the same. If you're attacking them defensively, they're healthier than they have been, but they're not as they're talented. Don't get me wrong, but they're not as good in the secondary as like the last 3 or 4 Georgia teams have been. So if you can protect up front and you can keep Jalen Walker from totally dominating your butt, then you can win against Georgia in the passing game. But the key is you have to get those guys blocked up front. The delayed blitzes, Jalen Walker, they move him all around, and he is a stud. If you can handle their front 7, easier said than done, then you can beat them in the passing game this year. That hasn't changed. I don't think Florida's a team to do that with DJ Lagway, by the way. I think they're going to get smoked. But we'll see down the line. Could Ole Miss rise up at home and have the game that people expected them to have all season? If Carson Beck turns it over a couple times, which he's definitely doing, could Tennessee in Athens, maybe Nico plays the best game and they protect him in that game? Maybe. But it's going to take somebody that has a good plan against the front 7, because if you can slow down their front 7 enough, you can beat them through the air, especially at the corner spots this year.
Our next super chat, Jerry, they've requested that you actually read it doing your best Arnold impersonation.
Arnold?
Schwarzenegger.
Oh, I don't know if that's good. That'll be bad. How about in my Mac Brown voice?
I'll let you read it.
Nah. Yeah, to crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations from their women. That's not. I don't have an Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It was well worth the $10 from Trace Little. Thank you, Trace.
I should have done it in Mac Brown voice.
To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of their. I think that's from Conan the Barbarian.
Nah.
Isn't that where that's from?
Yeah, I don't know.
That
I have no Arnold. I have no Arnold impersonation, so that was very bad.
Hey,
probably give him his money back.
You got a pretty close Conor McGregor one, though. I'll say it's pretty close to that. Oh, man. All right, guys, this next question is actually one that got the chat going. A lot of people weighing in on this, but this is from King Me. What Texas stat is more surprising? Offense with 17 sacks or the defense with 20 sacks?
I say offense with 17.
Yeah. No doubt.
We were – Jerry, in the preseason, you and I were talking. You wanted 40 sacks on the year for the defense. Now, that includes postseason, which, Texas is not that far off from that number. They're going to be in the 30s, it looks like, if they just average 2.5 the next 4 games. But the offense, 17 sacks, a little bit more than we thought. And I really believe that it is indicative of the short splits or the squeeze splits that Texas runs with, and picking up outside pressure. Tony Hills mentioned it a little bit, and I think that the edge right now, with the running backs not having Cedric Baxter, has really caused some pass protection issues overall. And that's no offense to Jaden Blue or Trey Weiser, who are trying, but they don't have the experience of Cedric Baxter. And Cedric Baxter seemed to be one of the ones, seemed to be somebody that was really had a natural way about doing it. You know what I mean? So I'm not all of this. It's on the offensive line. I think some of it is on the squeeze splits and where people can come from and disguise it. I also think some of it's on Sark a little bit in some of the play calls. Asking Gunnar Helm or Hayden Connor to go up against a defensive end on a pull is a tough ask at times, and it's gotten Texas in trouble more than once. Now that's part of his shot plays, so it's high risk, high reward, and I get that, but that's part of the problem too, I think. I'll say this: I don't want Gunnar Helm having to go one-on-one with Nick Scourton.
No. Oh, gosh, no. That's a sack every time.
But that's what I'm saying. So
that's how Quinn's got hurt.
It's not just the offensive line. So that 17 sacks, though, is surprising to me.
I want to say this because, obviously he's not playing this year. Somebody asked about Cedric Baxter's recovery. Look, a little too early to really talk about it. He's on the bike now. He's working through it, but he won't be ready till next season. But this is where I want to give credit to sometime that we need to some of these players. It's like anything else. Sometimes you don't know how good somebody is until they're not there anymore. And I just want to say this because I'm not even sure we gave it enough attention last year. You know how football smart you have to be to walk in as a running back and start from day one in Sark's scheme to where he totally trusted you with protection in the passing game, splitting you out wide. Like when Nick Saban said Cedric Baxter was the best running back they faced last year, he wasn't talking about taking a handoff, making 3 guys miss and going 50. He was talking about a guy that literally, as a freshman, could do everything in a complex scheme. I mean, so when those guys go down, you miss them. And sometimes it takes those guys not playing for you to realize, well, damn, that guy was probably better than we gave him credit for. You got to look beyond yards per carry and rushing yards sometimes because, in the building, he was being compared to Edgerrin James before the season. And now you just hope he gets back healthy because he's a extremely high-level player from a football intelligence standpoint.
And we got some more super chats to get to, fellas. This one here from Slick Rick. Thank you, Slick Rick. And he says, if Texas goes to the playoffs and if Trump wins, I'm donating $1,000 to On Texas Football. I told him regardless, he should donate anyway.
I will say this. We keep politics out of this, and we have since the start. So take that part out. Only thing I will say about politics, guys, is this. Vote. That's that. I'm not going to say Democrat, Republican, in between, this party, that party. Just go vote. That's the only thing I'll ever say about politics on this show. Hope you guys respect that. I want to keep football away from all of that mess because I think that arena is a hot mess, in my opinion. I have no interest in it.
But we do thank you for the super chat, and we definitely thank you if you donate $1,000.
Yeah,
Jerry Shacklinks, we thank you as always as well. And he says, "What do they call the team that wins every game by 1 point? Champion. Just win."
That was Tony's. Hey, that was Tony's comment. He goes, "Look, if they win the next 4 games by a field goal, you guys going to be upset? Are you going to be clapping on your way to the college football playoff?" And he's right. He's right. I think the odds of that happening are low if you're a really good team, though. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, Texas, look, they need to get through Florida, and then they need to go play a really, really good game up in Fayetteville. If they do that, they're going to be 9-1, looking at a gauntlet, looking at a Kentucky team they should beat, and then all the marbles on the table in College Station, man. That's really what this is looking like possibly.
And AR, we appreciate your super chat. He says, now that teams want to blitz us more, do you think that Sark will add wrinkles into the play concepts to make teams pay for that blitzing, like hot routes, etc.?
Absolutely. I absolutely do. I think that Sark already has those in the playbook. It's when to call them because teams are doing a little bit of both. With Texas right now, they're feigning blitzes, right? They're not just always coming. And so if you throw to a hot route on a feint blitz, your hot route gets blown up. So it's a kind of one of those things. I am interested to see if we see more 5 wide. If he goes empty some, I'm interested to see a lot of different things because I do think the one thing, and Rod's talked about this, the extreme versions of Sark's offense, the 2 running back sets and the 5 wide sets tend to be his most prolific or most promising at times. and consistent. And so I'm interested to see if Sark, as we go down this road, goes to more 2-back or 5-wide type alignments, just to throw things off. I mean, it's hard to blitz against 5 wides, guys. It just is. So keep that in mind.
So somebody in the chat, Joshua Dival asked this. You think Blue will be back next year? That was a popular conversation before the season. But, so I just looked that up because I saw the question. Look, I mean, anybody can go pro. I don't think he's got a lot of draft right now, guys. I mean, he has rushed for 315 yards. That's 180th in college football. In a deep running back draft, he's caught 177 yards. And he doesn't have production. And I nothing against Jaden Blue. We're just having an NFL conversation here. I mean, this is an extremely deep running back draft in 25. You have Ashton Jainty off the top, who's a first rounder. Marion Hampton's really good. You have Taj Brooks. I mean, there's a lot of guys that have rushed and been very productive in college football for 2 and 3 year period of time that are going into this draft. With Jaden Blue, the production isn't there, period. So anybody can go pro, maybe goes pro, but he's rushed for 315 yards, has 177 in receptions. And this has been his most productive season. So the production's not really there. We'll see what he does.
I think that the thing with Jaden that he has is he has the ability to get on the edge that is rare. And that will make him draftable, if not an undrafted free agent.
Right.
And be picked up. So I agree with you. He's not Ashton Jainty that's going to carry 20, 25 times a game. God, Jainty reminds me so much of LaDainian Tomlinson, by the way, guys. Yeah. And so I think that there's a place for him on an NFL roster, and it's not so much the draft that's going to be appealing. It's going to be somebody's going to find a spot for him on a roster because of that speed. And he's got good hands when he's focused.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go back to blitzing for a minute, but to the other side of the ball. Victor Aldridge, thank you for your super chat. He says, defensively, do you guys feel we need to blitz more?
Well, here's what's interesting. That's a great question. Here's what's interesting coming down the stretch for Texas. So DJ Lagway is a better athlete than Graham Mertz was. Taylon Green is a playmaker with his feet. Kentucky's a hot mess on offense. And then if it's Marcel Reed, he is a playmaker with his feet and an athlete at that position. That's going to be very interesting. Now, PK does not blitz a lot. So what are you going to do with 3 guys coming up on the schedule? And I'm not sitting here saying that DJ Lagway is a dual threat guy. He's not. He is a pocket passing guy that is a more than a functional athlete at the quarterback position. But what is PK going to do against those guys, Bobby? Because that is going to be interesting, because Texas is getting to the part of the schedule from Pavia till now Lagway because of the injury at Florida, to Taylon Green, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, whatever. And then if Marcel Reed's a starter for A&M in that game, what's Texas going to do defensively? Because that's more athleticism at the quarterback position, more feet playmakers, more extending play guys than Texas faced by far early in the season.
You light them up if they're a young quarterback. That's the what people say. So Derek Lagway is probably going to see more than I don't know,
Taylon Green,
who's started at Boise last year and now at Arkansas. I would say this: if you do light them up, you're going to want to play zone behind it and not man, and that makes it a little bit more difficult with what you can do. And it gives them a little bit better outs, quick outs. So I don't know. I think that my take on it is I think Texas in their defense right now, there are times where I wish they were more aggressive, but you can't bother with results. I mean, you can't argue with results. Excuse me. They are playing really well overall, and they're playing within themselves too, which I think is you don't see a lot of big plays from the opponents right now, Jerry. You don't see coverage busts. You're not seeing teams like you saw Pavia get outside once all game, right? And you knew that's the one thing you couldn't let him do. And after the first series, he never did it again. So part of defense is not necessarily just getting after the passer, which you obviously know that when you're asking that question. It's just I have no complaints right now about defense. Situationally, could they be more aggressive? Maybe. But, hindsight's 2022.
A big thing in Arkansas, which will, obviously that's a ways off, will be you got to give different looks to Bobby Petrino. If he zeroes in on you, he's going to be successful. So sometimes it's the guy calling plays for those quarterbacks as well. It'll be interesting with Florida. Watch Florida, Georgia, because Florida has one element. I haven't watched all their games. What's interesting, they got a little element of one thing they do that Sark does is they got a lot of that. They got a lot of the jet sweep motion, right? And then they play action off of that with the running back and the pistol or the gun. And they're trying to play action off that and throw it vertically down the field a little bit. So that's going to be interesting to see. And that jet sweep guy is Eugene Wilson for Florida. And what do they do with him in the passing game off of that? So something to watch there. Florida, Georgia this weekend. There's a couple of elements to what Florida does that Sark does. And I'm not comparing their offenses at all, but I'm saying it might look familiar. It'll be interesting to see if Georgia shuts that down completely.
We got time for more questions, guys. So get them in. We'll get back to those here in just a moment. But first, Bobby, let everyone know about Hargrove Roofing.
Yeah, thank you very much to our friends over at Hargrove Roofing. Billy Hargrove has started his company, and he's got offices all over Louisiana and Arkansas, and of course, the great state of Texas, including Austin. Hargrove Roofing will take care of all of your roofing needs, plus they're very Longhorn friendly. They have partners like our kicker, Bert Auburn, former defensive tackle, Stevie Lee, who is here on Texas Football on every Monday. They are the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. Call them today for a free roof inspection. Again, offices all over the state of Texas. Hargrove Roofing, know who's on your roof. 512-645-3202.
I wanted to read this comment here from K-Stu. And he says, let's add a few stars to that wide receiver out of Shadow Creek. 5 quarterbacks in 2 years and still dominating everybody's secondary. 5 stars.
Look, I don't know
if he related to Chris Stewart by chance. Young man,
I was going to say, I don't know if you taught your son to run through the ball, but whoever did a good job. When I was at Shadow Creek for a practice earlier this year, the most impressive thing about Chris Stewart, the 2026 4-star commitment for Texas, that guy runs through the football. He is a route completer, as I call it. He's impressive. He's got more size, a little more strength on him too, as you'd expect going from sophomore to junior year. But really good player. I think they lost their quarterback for the season earlier on. But Chris Stewart, for the Texas fans that haven't seen him, he is a route completer, man. He runs through the football. Very impressive. Full speed route runner through the football.
And then staying on the topic of commits, Nate Russ says, what true freshmen will we have in the running back room next year again? I can't remember.
Both running backs committed in this class are December graduates. That's James Simon out of Calvary Baptist in Shreveport. Obviously, his father, John Simon's been on the show, was a tremendous running back in college, in the NFL, and coached college football as a running back coach, wide receiver coach, and OC. So he's going to be advanced in pass pro in his understanding of the position. So that'll give him a chance, and he's got some size on him. He'll end up being a 5'11 and a half, 215, 220-pound back in time. Then Ricky Stewart, who's more in the mold of Trey Wisner for me at Chapel Hill. Very similar frames. in very similar games too for me. So those are the 2 backs coming in. They'll both be there in January for spring practice, which is key to get both those guys in for spring practice because Cedric Baxter nor Christian Clark will be available for the spring. So that will give Texas, at worst, if Jaden Blue makes a decision to try and go pro, then you'll have Trey Weiser, Jarrett Gibson, James Simon, and Ricky Stewart. You'd have 4 scholarship backs for spring.
And I'm going to circle back here, guys, to Chris Stewart because he recently came out with some midseason highlights. And so I'd like y'all to, go a little more in depth on him and what y'all like about his game.
Yeah, look, he's a guy that when he accelerates, he really accelerates, right? And he is a guy that just tracks the football well. He's a natural pass catcher. Seeing him in person, there you see he's got really good length to his frame. And when he catches the ball, he can pick him up and put him down and run away from people. They play tough teams now, too. They play a tough schedule. But he is, again, my big takeaway with him is he really runs through the football extremely well. I don't know if it's natural, if he's been taught really well. But for a young receiver, there's a lot of receivers, Bobby, that don't necessarily run through the football. They have to be coached up to that aspect. You don't have to do that with Chris Stewart.
You want to see something that you immediately notice if you're really watching film, watch his ball get off versus the other receivers. He's at 5 yards and they're at 4 yards down the field. So watch this. He's already made it to 5 yards past where the other guys were running full out. That's speed. So that means he creates separation. It's something that I've always watched with receivers to see what kind of real speed they have, Jerry. And then he legs it out here a couple times. Impressive young man for sure. Good speed, good quickness. I like how he's catching things with his hands and not with his body.
He has some DeAndre Moore similarities to him.
Yeah. A little bit faster than DeAndre, it looks like. More suddenness, at least.
Yeah.
Okay, y'all. Our next question here comes from BB. And BB says, which player has helped their draft stock the most this season?
Alfred Collins.
Gunnar Helm. Those are the 2, right?
Oh, Gunnar. Yeah.
Those 2.
Maybe Cam Williams. Jahdae Barron, I don't know. I think he's a mid-round guy no matter what. Just it'll depend how he tests. My Gunnar Helm is definitely one of them, and I think if you choose one on offense and defense, Gunnar Helm, Alfred Collins. Y'all good with those 2, Jerry?
Yeah, I think so. It'll be interesting. Makuba early in the season definitely did.
Yeah. He showed that he's a safety, not just
and was better tackler early in the season. I think he needs to come back and have a solid 3-4 games to the end of the regular season tackling. I think everybody knows he's good in coverage. Tackling, I think, is a big thing for him. Look, there's a lot of guys. Jermaine Lole had a draftable grade by the guys who run the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
He's actually playing if you can get past the medical exams like a guy that will be drafted on some level. But he's had 3 major injuries, and where does that go? You kind of saw that affects a Jordan Whitting. That affects those guys who've had all those injuries, right? But he's playing at a really high level.
And then Dean wants to know, do our linebackers line up too far away from the line of scrimmage? And is it because of all the talent on the defensive ends?
I don't think they line up too far away. I think that, look, I just don't think that's an issue. I don't know how else to say it. It's not because of all the talent at defensive end. I think it's fairly typical, actually, if you look at other places. Now, in run fits, we'll see. Sometimes if you have bigger linebackers, you'll play them closer to the line of scrimmage to take a run fit earlier. But I don't think they play too far away from the line of scrimmage.
And then our next question, fellas, Douglas Scott says, what about putting an extra lineman in or putting a tight end as a running back to help block occasionally?
Well, they do that with Juan Davis. That's essentially what he is. Now, an extra lineman, and we talked about this, Jerry, they have not gone with the Big 12 personnel this year. Todd Lacey mentions it. Why have we abandoned it? I'm not sure why Sark's abandoned it. And I'll say this. They've also had Jaden Chapman wearing a plus 80 number all season long, along with Ogbo, for this very purpose, yet we've yet to see it. So will we see it down the stretch here? I don't know. But I do think that could help with pass pro. It obviously limits the number of guys that can go into routes, though. So you got to be really confident that one of your guys can get open.
All right. And then Chris McDonald with a recruiting question for you, Jerry. He says, can you tell that a recruit has decided by how relaxed they get, or do you need them to say they've made a decision?
That's actually a really good question. After a kid commits, how relaxed they are, because the recruiting doesn't stop, is kind of telling, because it's a nerve-wracking process for these kids and these families, because it's almost worse once you commit in some ways, because then the school you committed to, there's a target on that school in July, and then you can't sign until December. So sometimes when you commit, it actually gets ramped up even more. So you can tell the kids that are the highly ranked kids who are very comfortable after they've committed that they're pretty much locked in. And you can tell when you go talk to kids in person, look, there's just, if you have experience doing this, you kind of pick up on some things, or with their coaches, how's he been through this process? Well, blah, 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 blah. So there's some things you can definitely pick up on, or their coaching staff picks up on, kind of tells you when you're at the school. Like yesterday with Myron Charles, he was more relaxed yesterday than at any point since I've been talking to him. I was by the school last spring. There's an old video you can archive, an interview on YouTube. You can archive from that here. But yeah, I think it's after they commit, because that's when sometimes the pressure really gets turned up, like the 2 months before you can sign. I don't even call it signing day anymore. I don't know what to call it until you can just say finalize your college pick. So that's what I would say to that.
Okay, and we've had a lot of people join, Jerry, since we originally talked about it at the beginning of the show, but a lot of people want to know about Javian Hilson, where Texas A&M stands and all of that, and your current thoughts on that situation.
Well, look, as expected, when he decommitted from Florida State, everybody was picking Texas and talking about Texas, right? Then he goes and visits A&M. Now, it's A&M's training. We've been through this with all these guys, right? I mean, it's the product, it's the marketing of these companies, and I get it. But look, this is what I'm going to say about Javian Hilson. He's not going to make an emotional decision based on a game, period. This guy is spending 20, 30 minutes with him last week. You saw the 14-minute interview, or however long the interview was, and then also being around him last Thursday at Cocoa. He is going to make a straight football decision. It's not going to be an emotional decision based on what he saw at a game or what a game atmosphere. This kid's been nationally recruited since going into midway through his sophomore year. He's committed to Alabama. Nick Saban retires. Then he commits to FSU, sticks with that commitment. The emotional recruitment is over for him. This is a football decision. It's not an NIL decision, because it's great at either spot you go to at a Texas or Texas A&M. This is a football decision. And based on my time with him, this will simply come down to, when he looks at Texas and he looks at Texas A&M, where does he think is his best chance to maximize? And that could be either from a coaching standpoint, that could be from a path to the field that is seemingly better to maximize and be a 3-year player in his eyes versus a 4-year player. It's a football decision. You got to remember, the one thing I said about him last week is the coaching staff at Cocoa said he watches more game video. They'll be on a bus after an away game, and he's sitting there watching huddle. He watches more tape than anybody else on that team, and that includes a quarterback going to Michigan. He is a football junkie. He is going to make a football decision, and it won't be an emotional decision, and it won't be an NIL decision, because that's going to be good wherever he goes. It's going to be about football and where he thinks his development is going to be and how quickly that development can start happening. That's what I think it's going to come down to with Javian Hilson, and it's going to be Texas or Texas A&M.
Okay, y'all. We have time for just a couple more questions, but before we get to those, one more time, Bobby, let everyone know about the Lowy Law Firm.
Yeah, each and every Wednesday's Coffee and Football brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, Adam and his group have 20-plus years of experience helping injured Texans. Again, LowyLawFirm.com. That's Adam Lowy. All you have to do is ask for a free, no strings attached consultation if you think you might be due some level of compensation. Again, LowyLawFirm.com. Thanks, Adam, for your support of Coffee and Football.
And we have a super chat from Dante. Thank you, Dante, as always. And he says, I want to stop being so critical of viewers, but gosh, Bobby, we have A&M coming up. They have a good front four. I hope Quinn gets his confidence back.
Yeah, I think that we're all in the same. I actually think a lot of people are in the same boat here. We want to be supportive of Quinn as much as possible. He made that hard against Georgia at times, right? I think that, and we mentioned this, and I said it post game. I thought he had a really nice bounce back game against Vanderbilt. It was not perfect. He is not perfect. For people thinking that he is the number one pick in the draft, he's not. So take that away from your mindset and think about him in the capacity of, okay, how is he leading this team? I thought he did a great job on Saturday, and Sark mentioned this. Your first real pass is intercepted. I mean, think about that. Put yourself in that in those shoes. What were you thinking that Quinn Ewers was thinking on Saturday after he had that first interception? Oh boy, this could be a long day, is what I was thinking. And then he goes out and completes 17 in a row. That's the kind of leadership and mentality you want from him. You don't need him to be 1-1. You don't have to, doesn't need to be the number one pick in the draft for Texas to win here. He needs to keep improving. He needs to step up in the pocket like he did against Vanderbilt. Enough. He needs to stop turning the ball over. Now, I know, we can talk about tip passes all you want. The second one probably shouldn't have been thrown, or he should have found another way to get there. He was one-on-one with an outside edge defender. Throw it at the guy's feet. Don't make it a 50-50 ball like that. So my take on all this is we need to stop judging Quinn Ewers as if he's the greatest thing since sliced bread and grading him on his leadership and getting and improving. That's my opinion. And I thought he put up a winning performance against Vanderbilt, period. He stepped up in the pocket. He took his sacks when he should take sacks instead of flailing or looking and hurting Texas further. And, I think he delivered some key balls. The pass to Gunnar Helm, the pass to Silas Bolden, the ball to DeAndre Moore for the first touchdown for him, for Moore in that game. Good throws, downfield throws too. So he's got it. We just need to see more of it.
This should, somebody said it in the chat, and I totally agree. This should be the healthiest he's been in a while.
Yeah, that's true too. Let's see if that is an impact.
Jackson S., we appreciate your super chat. No worries. I've already talked to you in the chat about it, but no worries about asking a redundant question. We've had a lot of people join since the beginning of the show, so we're glad you asked it. And then Victor Aldridge. Victor says, favorite player so far this year is Michael Taft. He reminds me of Earl Thomas a little bit. I love his leadership and willingness to come downhill and hit people.
I will say this. I like Michael Taft so far too. I don't know if he reminds me of Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas was a blur on a football field, right? Now, I will say this. Both of them care little about their own bodies. They will try to give everything they've got for the size they've got. So I'm happy for Michael Taft to win co-defensive player of the week award in the SEC. Nobody would have thought that coming into this season, Jerry. I mean, give me a break. No, nobody. Everybody was trying to say who's going to take over Michael Taft's position. I mean, people were trying to push him out of the starting lineup. Fair. So I'm happy for him. Really, really excellent player. Great story. You know, I thought it was awesome for Westlake fans, by the way. I'm not some big Westlake homer or anything, but Ethan Burke knocks that ball up, and Taft gets the interception. That's a great storyline there for the Chaparrals.
Okay, and then I answered this in the chat, but Jacob, I wanted to make sure that you saw it. He says he's trying to remember the Tecovas discount code. It's tecovas.com/Texas football for 10% off. So hopefully that helps you out there, Jacob. And we'll do this one. This will be the last one for today. Kay wants to know, is On Texas Football going to be at the game in Fayetteville?
I am not planning on going to that game at this point. So that is going to be the one away game that I plan on not going to at this point, unless something changes, and we'll go from there. But anybody, are you planning? I know we're going to have a tailgate there with Surly Horns guys and stuff, but I'm not planning on going personally.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. I want to thank them, along with Hargrove Roofing and Tile, for sponsoring today's show. Of course, thanks to Tony Hills for joining us as well, and the great questions, the super chat. Bobby, what's later today?
Well, Jerry and CJ have a recruiting breakdown because they couldn't get to it yesterday because Jerry had to get over to see Myron Charles. Now I don't know if Jerry's going to be able to do it because he's got to go see Kellen Wiley, the new.
We'll get it done today.
the new linebacker offer that Texas offered is now visiting. If you didn't get news on that early in the show, Jerry and CJ will fill you in on that on recruiting breakdown. Also, we have a number of other issues coming up. We got a live stream tonight at 7. A lot of stuff going on right now. Make sure you visit us at ontexasfootball.com.
I'll have a live thread from Sefner Armwood seeing Kellen Wiley, the new Texas offer, who will be officially visiting November 9th for the Florida game. I'll have a live thread on Texas Football, just like I have for all the other stops. Myron Charles yesterday, Javian Hilson last Thursday. So if you guys want to see what the new offer looks like, it'll be there on ontexasfootball.com.
Use that code OTFOG and you get $20 off your subscription. I mean, and we thank y'all to everybody that has signed up to this point, because it's made a nice community out there. It really has.
By the way, Armwood High is home to the 450-pound Florida defensive tackle, Desmond Watson.
450 pounds.
Well, I'm just saying that people say he's 449 or something. I don't know. I'm not sure I believe that, but I will ask today at Armwood what they think he weighs right now.
There you go. And if you want to look great like Jerry Hamilton and rock that On Texas Football cap, be sure to head on over to shop.ontexasfootball.com. Bobby has restocked. He's ready to ship them out. Head on over there, get you a cap, get you a mug, get you both. And then be sure to hit that like and subscribe button as well. We appreciate y'all's support. And we'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Hook 'em.